Welcome to another episode of Grade My Logo. My name's Josh, and I'm excited to walk through this with you today. We'll be evaluating a church called the church at Grace Point, and we're actually going to be doing a little bit more than we normally do. Yes, we're going to look at the logo, but I would also like to unpack a few other aspects of the brand and explore those with you guys today. Let's jump on in. Alrighty, before we jump in, just a quick reminder on the grading system and how it works. So we'll be evaluating based on these parameters, if you will. And as always, the goal for these things is not to expose flaws, but to really learn together. Especially, I've done this for a while, and I know that what it's like to be on both sides of the coin here. You're trying to get some creative work done with somebody, or you're working with somebody and you're just struggling, or the person that's got to approve it 4 rungs up the ladder is not in the room, and it can just create a lot of issues. So I really don't want anybody to ever walk away from one of these thinking like, wow, the previous designer was terrible. This is not supposed to be one of those gotcha things. Another interesting aspect, which I kind of love, kind of hate about this doing these episodes, is we're flying blind. Like, we don't have the client in the room. We don't know the context around any of these pieces. And we're missing the most important ingredient, which is the client's ideas and input and kind of notes on, or that the special little details that'll take these things from interesting to spectacular most of the times. And one interesting thing about this one is these guys are actually going to be doing a project with us, but I have not met with them yet. So they filled out this earlier this year, the Grade My Logo form. And so I wanted to just kind of evaluate it and test this one out, just, again, kind of flying blind without knowing where this thing is going to go or what. And I hope that the end result actually is pretty different than what we talk about today. But let's go ahead and take a look at what we're doing. So this is the church at Grace Point. And considering a rebrand, we've had this for a while. Not sure if it's time yet. Just would love some insight. So no, not too much in the way of like specific pain points, but let's go ahead and grade or evaluate it here on our system. Does it work in single color? Yes, I could absolutely see where and how this thing works in single color. I could see how you could lift this icon off. Is it scalable? Yeah, I think that you could shrink it down fairly small. I mean, you're starting to lose the church but Grace Point is the big thing, and the icon, again, depending on the situation and in single color or otherwise, like that's going to scale pretty well. So full points on these guys. Does it tell a story? Kind of. I mean, there's pointing, there's an arrow. GP is in there. It's explainable, put it that way. I would give this partial credit. So if each one of these bad boys are worth 25, I would say I'm going to go with 18, which is a strange number to go with there. And Josh is completely biased, subjective, personal opinion that, it'd be very different depending on who you asked. I'm going to give this, 15. Like it's decent. I find I'm realizing that a lot of times 3 and 4 are pretty connected for me. And then bonus points for vector artwork. As you guys are submitting these at grademylogo.com, it does help a ton. Not always, but sometimes like it'd be nice to manipulate what's already here rather than starting from scratch or having to redraw elements. So this one is a nice clean PNG, but it is not a vector file. So let's do some math. My favorite part of the show. That's going to be 50 plus, why did I pick such an odd number? 50 plus 15 is 65. Plus 18 is, my son would be proud. He's in 2nd grade, 83. This gets 83. Woohoo! Is that a B minus, like a low B? So B for the existing deal here. Now, how could we make it better or develop it a little bit further? Let's go ahead and, again, a lot of times with these things where we're kind of working in a vacuum, I'm thinking about like, is there anything from the name that we can use? In this case, no, not really. Grace and hope and these things, that righteousness, sometimes that we're asked to like make, an icon for the Holy Spirit. A lot of the work that we do here at Bright Coal is for churches and ministries. And I would say like an overwhelming majority, like a huge number of the work. And so this ends up being the big question for a lot of projects. Like, okay, how do we, create this symbol for something that is really squishy? Like it's a squishy thing. It's hard to, or it's a really huge concept. Like it's hard to, condense it down into icon form, if you will. So grace would be one thing I would normally play with, but we don't have. Again, just the problem I just mentioned. So I'm playing with the point here, and I would assume this has to do with, pointing north or, grace point. And so, there's some room for interpretation here. Again, this is where when I actually do sit down with these guys, I'm going to hammer them for details about their story, about the, tone and feel of what it's like to be in the room, what the church is like, all these things. But we don't have that here. That's the magic ingredient we're missing. So I'm going to say that, hey, if I'm driving around town and they've done a really good job branding this thing already, I would want to lean into I would assume that this is like what's on the bumper sticker of a bunch of cars, right? And what I'm thinking here is like, okay, how do we take that recognizable shape and this color and play with it a little bit more? And this is kind of close to where they're at right now. We may play with the thickness here. I like this one. I think that's Fat Frank. This one is Gibson, which is a great. It's kind of like this is where everybody's got different opinions, but I use it in cases where I'm looking for something a little bit more friendly and a little bit more interesting than a Gotham. It's kind of in that same category, but not quite so overused as that one can be. And just start noodling with stuff. I mean, there's some stuff here where you could get the G and the P playing together, but really the work of this project, I feel like, is going to be getting this arrow to be the right shape and size and style to sit in here. And does that mean that it's doing one of these guys? And do we lose our G if we go too far down this road? I don't know. This is what the wonderful world of adventures that is graphic design. What I don't like doing is like two-tone, where we have to depend on the shape here in order for it to work. Like I would definitely want whatever we land on to still work in that style. And maybe this is it. Maybe we're just eliminating pieces down here. I'm doing like the quick, ugly version of this. Just kind of noodling with to see, like, it needs to say G, right? Like I need the average person to look at it and go, oh yeah, that looks like a G. But we also needed to do something a little funky, a little interesting. And for that, for our little arrow guy to come through here. And this is starting to kind of feel like something. And I'm also curious what happens if we do stuff like this. Do we need this line here? And I am a massive proponent. I don't know if he's probably wasn't the first or only person to say it, but I know that Aaron Draplin's a big advocate for, like, make a copy. They're free. You don't have to pay for extra things. You don't have to go spend time to redraw it. This is kind of giving like Paper Airplane to me right now. But it's got some nice, like, interesting stuff going on. Also want to figure out how to, again, let's iterate, get that puppy over there. There's an idea here potentially. I want to see, does it still work? Is it still nice without the other piece there? Potentially. I made the mistake. All right, one thing that I like to do too when I'm used to drive one of my former bosses crazy is I will just like cover things up with shapes or like measure stuff using little shapes. And he's like, why did you got to cut the lines out? And it's like, I don't want to spend time on that. And until we know this is where we're headed, right? We always have time to clean up stuff later, but right now we're in the zone. We gotta. So I don't know. There's something funky bothering me about, like, I want these things to line up, but also the arrow pointing up and out a little bit. I feel like it's part of the magic of what's going on here. That's starting to look like CP in some ways. So this is where, I don't know, and it's so funny doing these two. Like last week or the previous episode we put out, I figured out the problem that I was dealing with on that one the next day. And I was like, oh, that would have fixed all the things. We just needed to lower the crossbar. Probably going to do the same thing here, but you know. All right, so not mad at this. I think it is a little more interesting than the previous version. Is it amazing? Is it perfect? I don't know yet. Don't know about that. I do want to try Zoop. Sometimes it can be fun to play with this stuff. Start killing some of these guys. Well, we got a little messy line work there. This is where former boss might have been right. All right, I'm gonna fudge it. I'm gonna cheat here a little bit. Mess up our angles. Oh, that's part of the problem too, is this was not a complete shape. All right, let's just see if some of these turn white. Does this ruin our shape? Yeah, that's terrible. That's not good at all. All right, so let's roll with this and just see what happens if we start playing with some of the church at Grace Point. Again, I might want to like push them a little bit to do something that speaks more to the personality and story there, but you know, we don't have that right this second, so we're gonna roll with what we got. I don't love that lowercase here. One thing I do want to mess with is let's go over to Type Wolf. And let's type in Gibson and see what shows up. So Century Schoolbook and FF I was thinking a serif. I don't know if a serif makes sense for the headline here. Let's see if we've got Tisa already on lock. Nope, of course not. Well, maybe if I would spell it right. All right, so this is fun. Is it the right tune? I don't like some of the I do like the contrast. Like if I'm doing headlines for this church, I'm just making up a name of the city that they're in. Like that combo is not bad. Sorry, we're jumping around to secondary elements now. This is another one I love, is fonts in use. Just seeing how other folks are matching these things up. I'm seeing Sarah multiple times. Acumen. Miller is nice. Got to be careful on Miller is available on Type Wolf. I'm sorry, available on Adobe. And without even seeing it, we're going to go ahead and add it in here. Because who knows? Who knows what the future holds here? All right, another thing I want to play with before we close up shop on this icon is let's keep what they've got. Let's take our arrow concept. I have a feeling it's going to be a little bit less. Ooh. we're going to cheat and fudge our lines a little bit here. So it's not a true like deal, but I'm seeing like if we could just stop the C here. This is going to be weird. I don't know if it's going to work or not, but let's try it out. A lot of the times when I'm having mood meetings with clients, I'm spending a lot of time like listening and kind of talking through them and asking a bunch of questions and trying to get a lay of the land, so to speak, of, you know, what the community is like and, you know, anything that they're particularly interested in story-wise. And a lot of times, you know, when you're approaching a brand project like this, like you're doing it for a reason, right? Like you're not, you know, they're either solving some kind of pain point or there's, you know, like, hey, we just got done like reevaluating our DNA. We've got further clarity on who we are. And this is getting real weird in a hurry, but I'm not. Sometimes you got to see it through. What if these guys share some pieces of this element here? But I'd be like chatting them up and trying to figure out, you know, catch some of the story and also get their feedback of like, hey, like we hate that, or we'll start looking at stuff that is on the right track and be able to make some smarter choices than we are, or more informed choices than we are here. This again, I feel like I'm the all this is going to like crack open for me in the shower tomorrow, but something up here is way more interesting. Is it real funky also and going to get some people asking questions? Yes, but, and this is an interesting one that I'll talk through with folks, is I feel like there's no like right or wrong answer, but there's kind of a spectrum of ideas. You've got like really abstract stuff that you can interpret maybe multiple stories out of. And then you've got really self-evident stuff. And, you know, these are the ones like the Target logo, like it is a Target. And there's a whole bunch of stop points in between here. And I found that, like I said, like it just really depends on your community and just the tone of your crew, like which one of these is the right fit. And if you ask people, they're always going to say somewhere right in here. So that doesn't really serve the conversation well. But, you know, back in the old days, you know, you walk into like an Old West movie, like the boot store has a boot as the logo. Like it communicates like, hey, come here for this thing. It's on the sign. It is the sign. And then the abstract stuff is, you know, like, hey, we have failed if there's not layers to unpack in the brand. Like we don't want to just like say what it is. Like we want to invite people on a journey, and you're looking for those conversations with people where, you know, they stop you in the hallway and say, hey, why did you pick the name, or why did you pick that logo? Well, I'm so glad you asked. And then you launch into something that where you're talking about like vision and, you know, like mission and like why we're doing this in the first place. And that's so much more fruitful and interesting than, you know, like just cosmetic, arbitrary, like design choices, right? Still kind of noodling with this, but I like this point lining up here. So this is weird, and it's given a little bit of sci-fi vibes, but I'm going to roll with it just because it's also feels a little off balance. But yeah, I'm going to go with it because I always tell our crew, like, hey, when in doubt, pick the more unusual answer. It's always easier to make something a little bit safer and tame it down than it is to take a boring idea and make it more interesting. And that's a lot of times the root of the like make it pop, or like I want to I don't know. I was hoping it was a little more like exciting, like those kind of notes are usually born out of, we're picking things, taking the safe route, or we didn't dig deep enough into story here. So this thing, I don't like how far it goes out this way. I guess we could always shorten this up. And maybe if we do it so that we've got a nice little line happening here. Ooh. Let me know down in the comments if I've seen a lot of people, they'll do like all the guidelines in the like showing how like watertight the logo is. And like, look, it's perfectly ergonomic, like this line and this line and this line intersect. And I've just found that like there's a lot of good logos that break those rules. And usually people, in my experience, are drawing those lines after the work is done just to like have an impressive page in the presentation, for honestly. All right, so if you ask Granny Mildred or somebody who's maybe got a little bit like I don't know if GP is the first thing anybody would see out of this. Is it cooler with a little rounding here? You know, say. I don't know if they would see a G and a P here, but you could explain a G and a P out of this. Like it's not too far out there to where it's like impossible. We're starting to get closer. Like I always say, hey, we're trying to get stuff that fits roughly in the shape of a circle or a square. Again, are there great icons that don't do that? For sure. But generally speaking, if you're trying to use this for day-to-day stuff, that is a shape that works well. And again, we've got this weird like negative space over here. It makes it feels like it's going to tip over a little bit. But in the interest of time and not boring you guys by over fixating on the details here, I do feel like we've fit inside of the parameters of what I'm typically looking for on that side. Where can the P go more inside? I think it can. See, I keep wanting to move away and then keep noodling with it and liking it better every time we tweak stuff. This is where, again, interest of time, I would measure all these spaces, make sure they're correct, because this one's definitely bigger than the others. And then there's another part of me that's like, can we just take that and run with it? Because I know some millennial pastors that would love a hyper minimal little deal there. And I think that I like it better rounded like that. Man, did not expect to land here. I also could see a case still for that guy, but again, I'm picking the weirder thing. I'm picking this guy. And now I'm looking for, I don't think that, this could work. I think I want something a little bit more geometric. Okay, lovely. And let's go think through geometric sans serif Adobe. Ooh, no, you know what I want to do? I want to do, what's the name of it? I just got it off of, what's his face's website? Oh No Typeco. We had James Edmondson on the podcast a while back. He's been, which was one of my like favorite days ever. Polymath, that's it. He's one of my favorite type designers, and he is like such a like gracious, like cool dude, and really has a big heart for like teaching and kind of bringing people along on the journey, and is not, the typical like jaded, angry old dog. This guy, and one of my things that I love about him too is he always has a ton of like super fun alternates. Do we like the E kicked up a little bit? So again, is this too weird for the client? Maybe. I like the little tail pointing out. Nope. Bad idea. All right, and I only bought, I think, like the one weight of this one. But ideally, I would probably go with something a little lighter. And is grace point 2 words? Ah, shoot. Yeah. And sometimes, I don't know if this is a good rule of thumb, but sometimes I will use, I think that unknowingly or unintentionally, if you match the same typefaces from one designer, like they'll naturally match. It's like, hey, he's written all this like, score music or like background music, like just because of his style, like it'll probably blend well from thing to thing. I don't know why I'm using that analogy. I'm struggling enough to use the actual deal, but basically, if Ono Typeco made one font, one of the first places that I look is other stuff that he and his crew have made. I think it's mostly just him though, to match. And like those have a similar like soul or like personality to them, right? And let's go get our G. Boop. And let's measure these distances. And again, we're using a little bit of rougher math this time, but see, this is where like you follow some of the rules, and I feel like that doesn't look as good as tightening it up just slightly on this one. So I'm always going to say, hey, like let the rules and the principles get you close. But at the end of the day, make a human judgment call and like use your eyes, especially if you've been doing it for a while. I'm going to say trust your gut and get close there. Oh, that's why I was doing that, to get it vertically centered. But we are going to roll with that for now. And I know sometimes I'll go like break out the other variations, which I'm always going to love to see what it looks like in a circle. And I'll probably would lean on Degular. I said I'm not going to do it, and then I immediately go do it. This thing took on a very like modern, funky approach here, which I like for the exercise. I have no idea, again, if that's like the right tone for this crew. And what's super fun is I'm gonna find out. We're gonna make an actual logo together, and it's gonna be wild to see like, oh, this is what Josh did by himself, and here's where we actually landed. What I like about this is it's got some movement, like we're going out, we're going up. It feels unique, right? And you could absolutely see this puppy on the back window of a car or on the side of a building. All right, so let's go build out some other pieces. One of the big things that I see a lot of folks lacking is colors. It's very common to say, hey, we're running all black and white, or we could say, hey, we are, we've got black and white and then this blue color that we like. And say, okay, that's cool. But if your whole website is black and white and blue, it's going to start feeling a little clinical, and it's going to, nothing's going to stand out after a while, right? So that's where I'm recommending we pick like an accent color at least that is pretty different. And again, this is where, secondary type choices and all these pieces like all tie back into what is the tone, what's the feel we're going for. If it needs to be, like I could see a version of this where it gets a lot warmer and more friendly, or a version where it's like harder and more serious, or like, I don't know. I just don't like, that's where I would be at the dinner table, like asking them to order, hey, and I always use like food and chef analogies. hey, like tell me what to take back to the kitchen. I'd be happy to let you sample stuff. But like, are you guys looking for something heavier? Are you trying to eat some fish? You trying to? What's the vibe here? Ooh, this is a weird kind of deal. And that's where like I like the gold. I like the blue. I still like their main blue a lot too. Yeah, what else could we be missing in the sheet here? And this is where like these two colors look really similar, but I'll show you in a second why I would want to have more than one in there. And so here's where we get into the fun zone. One thing that's nice about this blue is it works pretty well on light and dark backgrounds. I think what I would propose to them is like, hey, let's take this puppy up just a hair lighter. Oh, no. Don't mess with saturation, mess with brightness. Just a little bit, because ideally it's nice when your main color works just as well on a light background as a dark background. Again, that is not, from a book or a professor necessarily. It's just, I know that you don't want to have to like reinvent the wheel, or like it's just one less thing to worry about as you're printing and creating things and thinking about layouts. So I would probably propose that they lighten this blue up slightly. And I want one other like unexpected color. Like this adds a whole nother little kind of softness and like unexpected note here. That green is only going to play in certain environments. Everybody looks good with the blue. I do like that peach color. And I could see that with on our dark backgrounds and on this color. That's about it though. Let's go anchor off of our blue here and pick another color. That is a crowd pleaser for sure. And I think it'll go well with the green. Let's go just one hair lighter on that one. All right. So this feels fairly nice. What we don't have is like the big attention getting like click me button color. But we're going to roll with it for now. Maybe we keep both of those tones in there. I'm not sure. But we've got our, elements working pretty nicely here. And then sometimes we'll have like another like not full black, like just a little bit lifted. So we're guiding people's eye to the most important stuff. I like that. And then also thinking about your secondary type here. Whoop. Now I want something a little bit pointier there. What was that other one? Miller? Ooh. Look at that ampersand. That's real nice. We're going funk, all funk on the track tonight. And for our body text, first of all, we need to get a little bigger. I think we were using Degular for that subheading. I don't hate that choice. Let's go pull out to old type wolf and say Degular and see if they've got some other. I use type wolf a lot. I've purchased several synthes. All right. Ooh, I like a mono. Yeah, let's do Mabry mono, Roboto. Ugh. Yeah, we'll mess with Roboto. Let's see. I will say we have made the funky choice at every single intersection here, and we might be a little too skewed, a little too funky overall. But I do feel confident that we've got some elements here that work together. Like it's not, it might be a bizarre overall take or thing, but it works too, you know. I do like the all blue approach here. We do a little button style because I grew up in web design world and always got to think about the button. I just want to give him nice little breathing room around him. All right, so I think what this is missing right now is a nice, strong, respectable, like, subheading. And I want to do something like interstate. I feel like it's something that's not too fussy. I'm at risk of like overusing this one. I absolutely love this font and all the similar families. There's like a Google version of it and whatever, but they're all doing the same thing. Like feels a nice like mid-century type of deal. But yeah, like this puppy will run. Like this is a vibe. And a lot of times what I'm doing, you know, we polish things up and put them into like the brand guide or like, you know, mock-ups and stuff for people to imagine it. But at this stage, I'm just trying to like test ingredients and make sure we've got all the raw materials that we feel really good about game plan wise. And then from there, go out and something's bothering me about the scale of the logo here. Like one of the elements is too big or too far away. I don't know what it is. Again, I might need to start, if I keep doing too many of these episodes and having too many moments where I'm having the amazing idea the next day, I might need to do like a day after recap and be like, hey, I fixed, here was the problem. I found it. I fixed it. This is what takes it. And this is one of the reasons why I will, a lot of times I'll go, if the stars align, everything works out perfectly, I'm intentionally not trying to like cruise through a project in one sitting. I want to, get all the client stuff done and then sit down and really look at like do like a big sprint, get all the like first pieces, kind of do what I'm doing tonight, and then I would come back with fresh eyes and say like, okay, what's broken, what's working really well, do I have any new ideas, was the thing I was stumped on now like unlocked and better, and oh shoot, you know what, one thing that could be nice about this is let's we didn't even try stacking Grace and Point. And I do like this, but we just got a whole lot of not quite balance going on. We're close. The materials are here for something pretty solid. It's not bad. But yeah, so I would say to this stuff like, wow, this is fresh. It's interesting. It is heading in a good direction. There's some things to tighten up. It's kind of where we've landed here today. But yeah, let me know what you think. If you think that the wildly ambitious New Deal is way off base, or if it's cool and worth developing. And yeah, thanks again for hanging. I know this was a longer one, but wanted to show kind of my thought process on, how do we get from, beyond just the logo sheet or the flash sheet that we're working on? How do we really kind of bring that thing, into a system? Because yeah, it's great to have a great logo. And a lot of times I wouldn't say all the time, but there's a good chunk of projects that we walk into where, they're like, hey, the icon, we like actually the icon that we've got. We're pretty close. What we don't have is any of the other pieces. We don't have any secondary marks that we love. We don't have, like any colors to speak of. Like every time we approach X, Y, or Z project, we just have a ton of question marks and we're not excited about any of them. And as a result, either everything stays boring or everything starts becoming a big hot mess of kind of dealer's choice. Every time a project rolls around, it's like who is designing it and who is approving it. That kind of decides what it looks like. And really you want to have, or my dream is to build really nice toolboxes for people. So they've got stuff that could easily, it's pretty easy for any kind of like person with a decent eye to look at it and go like, oh shoot, yeah, like I know what to do with that. Oh, this gives me a bunch of ideas. Now I feel like excited to try stuff, and I know how that would map onto, signage and X, Y, and Z situations. See, this is why we do this, because the blue doesn't work on that. But see, like this is like an alternate look. Like it's still in the same neighborhood or family or overall style, but it is in a pretty different take there. And that's where, like, I'm again going back to the tools in the toolbox. Like I want people to have stuff where it feels pretty different. Hey, this is a different like moment, or like we're trying to catch people off guard, or hey, we've done, the last 4 pop-up banners we did were blue. Let's throw a green one in there to not get too stale. And there have been studies done where people like lean in if they're on a website, and then it's as subtle of a change as the background changes from cream to light blue. All other factors the same. Like these feel very different, even though it's just one tiny tweak. And I think just having enough little levers to play with really can make these things a lot stronger. But again, guys, thank y'all so much for hanging around. If you've stayed for the whole thing, yeah. Thanks for your time. Hope you had some fun or learned anything, or have a bunch of ammo to go back and say like, this guy's crazy. Let me explain why. But anyway, love you. Adios. Until next time, have a good one.